All right, I think the recording should be started now. And let's go ahead and share the slideshow. All right. Well, thank you all for coming here. We're going to be getting into some student employment information for international students. This is a follow-up to our last session last week on specifically landing the job at this point. So we're going to quickly introduce ourselves for you here. My name is Mishu Ramseged. I am a career engagement specialist at the Career Engagement Office. So I help students with coaching appointments on any kind of career questions or concerns they may have, as well as any type of workshops or presentations that we provide throughout different classrooms and various spaces on campus. We also help put those on. And I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Sharon to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi again. My name is Sharon Leary. I'm the Student Employment Director at SU. And so I work to support our students and on-campus employers in all things student employment.
Hi, I'm Jenna Mole. I'm a financial aid counselor and work study coordinator. I work out of Student Financial Services. I work with the work study program, but I also help support student employment, especially for things like onboarding.
And I'm Chloe Thomas. As you know, I'm one of the assistant directors in the International Student Center and an immigration advisor.
And I think that leaves me, maybe. Hi, I'm Rebecca Carlson. I'm the manager of experiential programs in Albers Business School, and I oversee internship for credit and CPT process just for Albers business students. So if there's any business students that happen to join later, I am the one to contact if you have any questions.
All right. So in this session, as we mentioned, focusing specifically on landing the job, we're going to do a bit of overview on some tips for resume building, a little bit on cover letters, as well as just some general info on kind of differences between application materials in some other countries versus what kind of is the standard in the US. Before we get into that, though, I'm going to actually turn things over to Sharon for a little recap of what we covered last time on student employment.
Great. Yes. So I think we just want to do a quick recap and summary of what our part 1 session looked like before we jump into the part 2 stuff. So this will be a bit of a repeat for those who were here before, but in case you weren't. When we're talking about student employment, we're talking about work opportunities that are specifically provided by Seattle University, as opposed to any other jobs or internships. And those are intentionally designed and offered in order to help students support the cost of their education, but also gain valuable skills and competencies. And some of the benefits of student employment, in addition, right? So we have that financial aspect of making money and covering expenses. And if Misha, you can advance to the next slide. And also gaining skills, which is here as well. But there's a lot of other benefits. So things like working on campus, which is convenient and accessible, and supervisors know that you're a student first, and so that's really their priority. Provides you with opportunities to explore careers and try new things, explore sort of what your strengths and interests are, and that might help set you on a career path that maybe you hadn't expected. You get to apply classroom learning, so things that you're learning in the classroom, you can apply to real world, real work settings, and then you also get to take back what you're learning at work into the classroom. It helps you to find community, so you'll make friends with your peers at work, your colleagues. You get to connect more with staff and faculty that you work with, learn more about the campus kind of more broadly. And then student employment also contributes to persistence and career success. So we find that students who work on campus actually tend to do better academically and post-graduation. So there's that sort of hidden benefit as well. Just some basics about student employment at SU. So international students are eligible to work on campus without using CPT or OPT. So that's a benefit certainly to working on campus, that you're able to do that and you have that work authorization. With that, you need to be registered full time. And that's except for during academic breaks. You can work during breaks, and at that time you might not be registered. So that would be summer break, winter break, spring break. During the academic year, when you are taking classes, you can work up to 20 hours per week. And then during academic breaks, you can work up to 40 hours per week. So those are also part of the work authorization for F1 and J1 visas. So that it is important to stay on top of your hours and making sure that you are only working 20 hours per week. Say most jobs on campus at SU are in like kind of the 5 to 15 hour per week range. And you can work multiple jobs. But again, if you're working multiple jobs, you do have to keep that to 20 hours total. Our pay rate is $18.69 an hour currently, and that may go up on January 1. We do have remote and hybrid options available, so you might be working on campus in person, but there are also remote options to add a little bit more flexibility. And then all of our jobs are posted on Handshake, which is our job search platform for students and alumni. It does a lot more than that as well, but in this context, that's where you'll go to find on-campus jobs, and they're all posted underneath an employer called Seattle University On-Campus Employment. And if you're seeing jobs there, you can apply to any and all of those jobs. So you don't have to worry about anything like work study or jobs not being open to all students. All of our jobs are going to be open to all students, and you just have to meet the qualifications and apply to things that are of interest to you. You can start applying now, and you could start in the fall, but know that jobs are posted all year. So if you're not really ready to apply yet, or maybe you've applied to some things but you haven't gotten a job offer yet, there will be more, and there is opportunity throughout the whole year. Then lastly, just in terms of the hiring process and some important notes for our international students. If you don't have a social security number, you will need to take some extra steps to make sure that you apply for that social security number before you begin work. So you're going to get 2 letters. One is a letter from your supervisor. That's basically an offer letter that has your job title, your pay rates, your start date, your supervisor's name. You're going to get a letter of support and your I-20 from the ISD. Then you will go and apply for a social security number. After that appointment with the Social Security Administration and you've gotten your application done, they'll give you a receipt. And then you are going to need to bring that receipt with you to do your I-9 with us on campus. Because all of these steps have to happen, and we need to make sure that your record in CBIS is all active and looking good for the Social Security Administration, you cannot begin work until on or after September 30th. So keep that in mind. If you have a social security number, you get to bypass all of the application of social security number steps. But you will need to come and do your I-9 appointment with us and get your forms completed. So all of our new hire paperwork includes an I-9, a W-4, and a direct deposit form. If you have a social security number, you don't have to apply for one, then you can start work on or after September 20th. And that is because if you're an incoming international student, you can't start work until your program actually starts. So that is the quick rundown of those details, and you can always email us or the International Student Center, Chloe's team, if you have any questions.
All right, thank you, Sharon, for that overview. All right, so let's start getting into just some of the basics of a resume, kind of breaking down what the anatomy looks like. So first up here, actually, wanted to just go over kind of the differences between a CV, resume, cover letter. Actually, I know I've got the information here, but to our student in the audience, what differences do you know of between those three types of documents that we mentioned? Can you think of, or anyone here, between resume, CV, cover letter? Any thoughts from our student in the audience?
What was the question again, Miss Shu?
Yeah, just differences between a resume versus a CV versus a cover letter.
Do you want me to chime in? I
Oh,
can.
good. Oh, good. Actually, yeah. What thoughts do you have before we get into that slide?
So resume is a brief snapshot of your experience and skills as related to a specific job. CV is a longer, more academic related document. And a cover letter is more of a persuasive essay sort of letter that is able to tell more about your experience and why you're interested.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so then basically like broken out here in kind of a longer form of what Sharon was already saying. The CV is what's kind of popular in more academic circles. It tends to focus more on like publications of the applicant. It could also be things like conference submissions, presentations, and things like that. This one isn't necessarily tailored for each position because it is more comprehensive of a document. It kind of changes as your accomplishments grow. This is one that usually is a bit more of a like fully encompassing type of document that just showcases all of your academic related experiences. Whereas the resume, this is the highlights reel. So this it gets into things like what are your previous work experiences, short information about your education, your skills, typically is broken into your education experience and maybe other types of experience sections as well as skills and things. And then finally, you have the cover letter. This one is, as you were mentioning earlier, Sharon, more of an essay, right? Typically a handful of paragraphs. You have your intro, your body, conclusion, keep it to a page. This one is where you take that kind of highlights, reels information from your resume, make it a bit more into a narrative. And this is where you really want to spend the time to tailor the information you write specifically to your employers, as we'll get into later. I just want to note that where things start getting a little confused here with these documents for international students a lot of time is that in some countries, the standard document submitted rather than a resume is the CV, and it's not necessarily always considered an academic document per se, but rather just a general kind of overview of work experiences. But here in American context, when you hear CV, it isn't just talking about a general listing of your experiences. If you want a general listing of your experiences, that's more of the resume. It's a bit shorter than what you might see in other countries because we usually like to keep it to a page here, at least when you're first getting started out with your career, whereas a CV is more of that academic focused document. So here's basically just an outline of what these sections are going to be looking like in the resume. You usually want to keep some of your most important info towards that top 1/3, right? So have your name and contact info. You don't need a full address, but at least the city, state you plan to work from is good. And then from there, your education. So you want to have your degree, the university. Sometimes it's good to have related coursework if maybe you don't have tons of experiences related to the job you're applying to. That one's kind of just going to vary from here to there. And then from there, of course, it can also be good to have other information, education, like the GPA, if you had a particularly high one, at least 3.5. And sometimes awards, scholarships, things like that are also things people would want to showcase within their resume, just to show they've got some strong academic backing within their experience in school. There are also some other sections that people sometimes were including in maybe older resume examples. So like objectives or personal summaries, professional summaries. We don't tend to use those too often in resumes nowadays, but some of the information people put into those can still be useful in things like a LinkedIn profile, or even just referencing when you're writing your cover letter, or even preparing that kind of information for your job interviews later down the line. And then we have experiences within the resume. So this is kind of what's going to take up the bulk of the work that you're doing. You want to try and put them within order of relevancy, in the sense that, if you're breaking them up into multiple types of experience sections, like sometimes people might have a relevant experience versus additional experience section, then you'd want to have the relevant ones first, which are basically just experiences related to the job description you're seeing, since you do want your resume to be a bit specific to each job that you are applying to, making little edits to your bullet points here and there. But when it comes to how you list each experience within the sections, it is typically best to try and have them in reverse chronological, so the most recent experience first and so on. With that being said, when it comes to the types of experiences you choose to put in there, you definitely don't need to have everything that you've done in there. But if you are finding yourself hard pressed for experiences relevant to the job you're applying for, just know that paid or unpaid doesn't make the hugest difference, in the sense that if you've done something, that is experience you've gained, those are skills that you've gained. So you do want to show those, even if it was work in a club on campus, if it was volunteer work that you've been a part of, any type of personal projects. Those are all great things that people can choose to include on their resumes as well. I just want to emphasize, though, the importance of, again, like whatever experiences you do choose to include from the wealth of life that you've lived by this point, be sure to keep careful consideration of the job descriptions, especially in the case of student employment. A lot of these departments on campus are doing very different things, and a good number of them have experienced people sending very impersonal resumes. So just make sure that the resume you are submitting there to them has carefully considered the job descriptions that you are looking at. And when you are writing these experiences out, it's good to try to integrate the skills specifically that you saw within that job description in each of these bullet points that you have listed here. One way that you do that is by what we call impact statements. So essentially what you're doing here is, you're starting with some type of action word, like you might notice under that research assistant position, one of the action words they lead with is collaborated, right? And the STEM tutor one, another one they lead with is appointed. So you want to start to kind of take a more active approach to writing these bullet points that it shows the work that you're doing. And then from there, it'd be good if you try to explain, what are you doing within this role? How did you do it? And then finally, what was the impact you got or the result? And this is kind of a blown up version of what we describe as impact statements. Again, describing you want to have your action, your method, your result, or impact. In this particular example, what we talk about is somebody applying for a role as, say, a teaching assistant role. The action they may have taken in a previous job that they had relevant to this may have been facilitated learning of honors and regular chemistry. The method could have been for 10th and 11th grade students, using student-centered lessons, activities, and then their final result was that they benefited a culturally diverse group of students. And by putting these together, they are able to have their final impact statement together. So little activity here. Since we only have the one student here, are you still there, Adamu?
Yeah, I'm still there.
Okay, awesome. So if you want, I mean, you can actually, maybe we can give you a minute here to craft together and like a couple impact statements based on what we've shared here so far. And if you want to, you could also try to maybe open up Handshake to try to find a particular current campus job that you want to write impact statements related to. But yeah, I mean, if you want to maybe take a few minutes to do that, we can leave that there for you, these impact statements piece. And I mean, you can take more time to write one out, and then, you know, we can share it as a group. Or if you want, you can, you know, try to, like, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you could quickly come up with one, if you feel so moved to, maybe think of a particular position you've done in the past and just how you would describe it using this method.
So, like I said, in my previous college, I was a math tutor. So we had like tutor training where like we learn how to like communicate with people. And in the Math Research Center, like we had students coming from like different backgrounds. So I think the impact or result might be that like cultural difference, because I got to like meet people from different backgrounds. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, you got, yeah, your action, you were able to tutor students, you know, your method there, and then your final impact was benefiting culturally diverse group of students. I mean, that was the one written here, but yours seems to also be similar to that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And then I didn't actually hear too well what you were saying the particular method was, or what skills you used. Can you say that one again?
So like we are taught like not to give the answer right away. Instead, like letting the students like come to the answer by themselves. Like we're just there to assist.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. That's a strong one. Okay, awesome. Any other impact statements you can think of from that experience, or any other experiences you've had?
For now, like that's the only one I can think of.
Yeah, that's good. Awesome. Can anybody else, any of our fellow staff here, think of any particular types of statements they'd want to maybe describe your current jobs with?
I can give a try. So
Yeah.
maybe if I'm thinking about, well, just, you know, one component of my job is organizing events or planning events for students to learn more about student employment, right? Like what we're doing right now. So maybe my action would be, you know, plan and deliver events for students. And then the method might be maybe like including on-campus jobs fair and what else? And educational events. And then we can say the result or impact would be to help students get connected to job opportunities and learn more about student employment.
Yeah, awesome. Solid action there. You got your method result of finally connecting students to positions. Your method was around your fairs that you produce, as well as the postings, and your actions is helping them get their jobs. Awesome. All right. And then finally, finishing up the anatomy of a resume. Typically, you know, you'd want to have some type of skill section within this. So lots of different ways you can do this. And this particular example, someone chose to brook up their engineering software skills, as well as just some Microsoft Office skills. Sometimes with Microsoft Office, people will literally just say like Office Suite or Microsoft Office and kind of just includes the big three that Word, Excel, PowerPoint, however you want to break those up. But the idea here is that you want to try to prioritize the skills in the job listing. You might have like 20 awesome skills that you want to share, but you also only got a page to put things on your resume. So maybe pick your top 6 or your top 8 or 10 or something. It is also good to try and focus this a bit more on some more technical skills if you can, or what we call hard skills. Sorry to keep picking on you, Adam, but you are the only student here. So do you know, by any chance, difference between hard skills and soft skills?
No, I don't.
Okay, that's awesome. Do you want to like give it a guess maybe?
Like relevant and irrelevant?
Kind of. I mean, so let me explain basically. So basically you're like on the right track. That hard skills are oftentimes ones that might be a little more like specifically relevant towards particular jobs, whereas the soft skills are ones that are maybe more generally applicable, right? They aren't always ones that are super specific to the particular position. But basically hard skills are things that tend to be, there's usually some type of like physical or kind of like hard evidence of that skill. Like, you know, you can write code or something and people can see that code, or, you know, you can, you know, use certain equipment and there's hard physical equipment that you're able to work with, right? Or maybe it's, you know, particular like data analytical techniques and people can see the data analyses that you've run. Whereas soft skills are things that maybe a little less, you know, like hard trained. Those can be things like communication or teamwork or leadership. These are a lot of times more interpersonal or kind of people skills. And a lot of times, you know, you don't want to just list off soft skills on a resume because kind of anyone can just say that they have those, right? It is sometimes good if you have specific, maybe soft skills, things like that sound a little harder, like on project management or things like teaching or coaching. You know, those are ones that could be a little more relevant to apply if you see them within job descriptions. But generally, you don't want to just list off soft skills without some type of elaboration or demonstration, which is why they're kinds of things that you might want to talk about in the kind of course of writing your bullet points with your experience sections, right? That's usually where those kind of soft skills will come out a little more, as well as when you write your cover letter or even in your interviews, they'll see those with you, right? But basically from there, after you go through your skill sections, there are a bunch of different other ones that people will add in. Sometimes that might be a leadership section for clubs or organizations you've held positions in or been a part of. Sometimes people list awards there, although awards can also be listed in your education section, just depending on how many you have and if they were tied to the specific school you went to or not. In terms of where you place these two sections kind of vary a bit on where you want to use them. Skills is sometimes towards the bottom more commonly, but you could put them right under education if you feel that you have really strong skills, or if the job you're applying to really is prioritizing the skills that you've got over specific experiences. But I would say that's pretty much it for the general idea of what that resume framework looks like. And of course, if you have questions at all, then we offer coaching appointments one-on-one for resumes as well, if you want to get into specifics of how you can build yours out. Next bit I wanted to talk about was how you can decode job ads. Because again, as we mentioned, you do want to write your resume with the job description in mind. So, you know, I would say it can be good to not just look at the description you see, but do a bit of research on the company, right? So go to their about page, their mission, even their career sections, right? These are things that you can look at so that you actually have a stronger idea of what they're actually looking for within the company, and not just the specifics of the description, but actually how you can see yourself being a proper fit for their culture or for their mission and things like that. And it's also good to try and use their language when you can. So integrate those keywords that you see listed within the descriptions. Also remember that even if the job ads you see have a bunch of things listed as preferred, by no means does that mean you can't apply. If you feel that you meet at least most of the qualifications, unless there's something absolutely like fundamental, you're missing like a license that's required by law or something, then I would say go ahead and shoot your shot. It is pretty common for women and people of color to especially not be willing to apply for jobs when they don't meet 100% of qualifications, but odds are when you meet 100% of qualifications for a job, you may very well end up being a bit overqualified, since typically you don't actually have to meet 100% if what you're seeing is just preferred kind of qualifications and not just their like kind of absolutely required things to keep in mind. Another thing I will say to also keep in mind with the job ads is things like if they're using any type of like problematic language, if you see things that could be a bit concerning, things that might make them appear aggressive or demanding, if they have kind of statements there that maybe indicate it's an uncomfortable workspace for you, I would say to bear those in mind is all. But this is basically a a job description you can see here for specifically an elementary counselor. You can see they've listed out all these things here. So it can be a bit daunting when you just approach this in the job description and see this is what you have to try to integrate in your resume or your cover letter, right? So what you'll notice in the example on the side is that they kind of highlighted key pieces, the whole job summary, and then specific bits from the duties and responsibilities, so that they know, okay, what are the things here that I have done in the past that I could write in my resume, or what are the particular skills or experiences that I can showcase I've done that they are looking for. So doing a quick kind of run through like this with your job descriptions can help give you a better idea of exactly what it is that you do want to show employers you're ready to provide them. So next, want to get a bit into the anatomy of a cover letter. Just a quick question. Have you, Adam, had the chance to submit a cover letter for a job before?
No, I haven't yet.
Okay, got it. Well, that's good. This is a good place to start then. So I would say, again, keep in mind when you're applying for jobs on campus and any of those student employment positions that you are going to want to try to specify information that you've gotten from the particular office or department that you are applying to, whether that means looking through their webpage. This is especially the place where you are going to want to have those details, basically, because you're doing a lot more of a narrative here, right? And rather than just the highlights or the reels, wanting to get into kind of why are you wanting to work there? Why'd you be a good fit for them? How do your experiences prepare you for the position, and so on. So here, what you can see is, side by side, the traditional format, a kind of just general example of what a cover letter could look like. I will say that this is a sample based on kind of our older kind of cover letter samples that we put on our website. So one thing that I would recommend doing a bit differently than what you see on this slide, I believe the second paragraph on it uses bullet points. I would say probably just use a paragraph for that would be good, because you've already bulleted out your experiences on your resume. But basically what you're seeing here is the same resume heading, right, with your name and contact info, location. And then from there, it could be good to include the address line of the company that you're applying to, or whatever organization, and as well as the date. And then finally, after addressing whoever it is, if you can find the name of the person you're addressing, that would be great. If not, at least their position, or finally, at least hiring manager, if you couldn't get that specific info. So then you want to have your intro paragraph, which kind of breaks down just how do you learn about the position, or why do you want to work for this place? What makes you a good fit? Just like when you're writing an essay, your first paragraph is supposed to introduce what you plan to talk about. So do that there pretty much. The next paragraph, it could be good to focus a bit more on your qualifications. So it can be helpful to maybe pick a particular experience that's really relevant to the position that you're applying for and just elaborate on it a lot more. You can kind of follow some of the framework we talked about in the resume of, what did you do? How did you do it? What was the impact you got from this? And then that next paragraph is supposed to be something that kind of breaks down a bit more of, what is it that would, make you a good fit for them? Do you align well with their mission or their values? Are you really passionate about the type of work that they're doing? Do you have some personal connection with the company or anything like that? And then in your final paragraph, you would have basically a little conclusion that just kind of breaks down, what are the things that you've covered so far, a little summary of the experiences or of the qualifications and the fit, and then just things like thank you for your time and consideration, and looking forward to hearing more. But with that being said, after you close with your signature, your closing line, name, is there any questions that you have actually on the cover letter?
No, I don't have any questions for now.
Okay, awesome. And then, of course, again, as like mentioned earlier, we do also offer the one-on-one appointments, but yeah, I'm just gonna have this slide up here for a second for the recording's sake, but this is breaking down what I was talking about earlier with the 4-paragraph structure. I would say just bearing this in mind can be good as you're going about this. First one, who are you? What's the purpose of the letter? Second, why are you a good fit for the position? Third, why are you interested in the company? And then fourth, what do you hope all the next steps will be? Summarize what you talked about and so on. So next, I actually want to give just a bit of an overview on using ChatGPT for resumes and cover letters. Quick question, do you know what ChatGPT is?
Yes, I do.
Okay, just wanted to be sure. It's a newer thing, but I know it's been kind of all over the news lately. Everyone's talking about it. But yeah, can you kind of like share with us, I guess, like what is your understanding of what it is?
So it's like an artificial intelligence. It helps like solve problems. We use it a lot in computer science, like when we have coding problems, like ChatGPT can provide us the solution code. People use it like for essays or like academic essays, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You have a very strong understanding of this, of course. So yeah, pretty much that's what we're looking at here with what ChatGPT does, right? So people have been using it more lately to also write, their resumes, their cover letters, and there are just some tips that we want to make sure that you all have in mind when doing this, because, you do still want to make sure that you're sending in quality materials, but also when you're writing a bunch of applications for tons of jobs, it's good to have all the help you can get, right? So first kind of bucket of questions we want to address here is, can you use it to write your resume and cover letter? So I would say if you wanted ChatGPT to write those things for you, it would be good to actually well, at least if it was a cover letter anyways, that you would already have a resume prepared that you can give it. That way ChatGPT can start using your relevant experiences to build that out. And also for both the resume and cover letter, go ahead and give it the job description as well, so that they know what to tailor things to. The other thing I would say is be sure to give specific guidelines for what you want to include and how to include it. So ChatGPT can kind of just go on and do whatever it wants if you aren't telling it how to do things. If you just say a resume, they might give you a 2-page document, right? So if you want to narrow things, maybe give it specific pieces of the resume you want to work on. Say things like, write 3 to 5 bullet points for each of the following work experiences, based on their given descriptions, and then maybe provide like a couple sentences that describe the experience, right? The other thing I would say is to double check everything that they generate for accuracy, because ChatGPT has been known to mess around a little bit with details. If you aren't specific with what you give it, if you kind of give it free rein, it can start making things up like, what school you went to or whatever. So keep that in mind. Also, I would say to still refer to more professional guides for resume and cover letter best practices. ChatGPT might not be the expert on how to format a good resume or on how to word things right. So I would say use it more as a reference tool, something a little more generative to help you put words to the thoughts or ideas you're thinking of. And it would be good if you did still have like a general copy of your resume and cover letter to refer to, basically utilizing ChatGPT as a tool rather than like the primary source for your work. So a few things to note that we've kind of been touching on already is that ChatGPT doesn't know anything about your background that you didn't tell it, right? So only you are the one who can best describe the jobs you've done. So it is still good to provide a general job description for them from your previous roles, and then the specific notes on how you want them to write that. The other thing, as I mentioned earlier, is that it will make up details. I really want to stress this, that they absolutely do that. So that's why it's so important to double check. It can make up numbers. It can make up the tasks you completed in previous jobs based on kind of just general info from the internet on what types of things people do with that position. And it might even make up the school you went to based on the location that you told them you worked in. So again, if you don't give it the information, it's not going to know what to do. It will make things up otherwise. Another thing is that an AI generated document could sound like a bit robotic, so make sure to edit the language that is utilized to sound a little more natural, a little more like a person is writing it. With that being said, having AI help you with your application materials can remove a lot of the burdens, from the job hunt, having to write like application over application, but writing your resume and cover letter is still a good part of the educational process. It gives you experience kind of thinking through your strengths, your skills. It gives you kind of the ability to, reflect on your experiences and put them into words. And that's going to be really helpful when you have job interviews in the future. If you're talking to employers, you're going to want to have those skills that you developed writing your resume and cover letter. So at the very least, try to write at least one or two of each resume or cover letter, just so you've got that skill set ready, and then utilize ChatGPT to kind of just aid you along in the process, essentially. But with that being said, that brings us to the end, of this overview for resumes, cover letters, job descriptions. What questions do you have?
So like, what's the difference between CPT and OPT?
I'm actually going to hand that one over to, there we are.
Yes, I'm happy to help with that, Adam. So the difference between CPT and OPT is kind of when you do it within your educational experience. So CPT is typically done prior to graduation. It stands for curricular practical training. So it's an internship that you do in alignment with a class. So for example, as part of your computer science program, if you had an internship, you would have to register for that internship, get a job offer, and then you could be authorized to do 1 quarter of CPT. Your internship could last longer than a quarter, but you would have to be enrolled in an internship for every quarter that you do the internship. So in that situation, you would actually get the offer first, and then you'd get authorized. OPT is a little bit different. It takes a little bit longer. You actually have to apply. It's like a $400 application fee, and it authorizes you to work like a full-time position after you graduate. Some people do pre-completion OPT, which does happen prior to graduation, but it's not typically recommended unless you have a specific reason. But that is an extension of your F1 visa. So after you graduate, you can work full-time at a company that hires you to be able to do something connected to your major. Just note that both CPT and OPT, you have to have a position that's connected to your major in order for it to be considered authorized. But OPT, you have a little bit more flexibility on kind of the type of work that you're going to do, as long as you can make that case that it's connected to your major. So does that help answer your question a little bit?
Oh, yeah, it does. Thank you.
Sure.
And one more question, like, do I have to attend classes while on CPT?
You do have to be enrolled in classes, yes. So the caveat to that is that you have to be enrolled in at least an internship class. And during the school year, it has to be full-time. And then during summers or like spring break or something like that, as long as you're enrolled for the following quarter, you'd only have to be enrolled for that internship class. So we would recommend working probably no more than 20 hours a week during the school year as part of CPT, although you could technically do more if you got approval. And then you could work up to 40 hours a week during the summer as long as you were enrolled in that internship class, which might be just 1 credit, and then also enrolled for the next term.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
No more questions.
All right, awesome. Anyone else here have anything they want to share, anything missed during the presentation? All right, if there's nothing else, then thank you for your time. Yeah, and that's all we have for you here today. And this recording will be made available online if you did want to refer to it later. Just wanted to also kind of close off as we do in the career engagement office. But if anyone, of course, has anything that they want to work on career-wise, whether it's editing a resume or cover letter, practicing for an interview, learning how to look for jobs, learning how to network, even just exploring your career options. We do offer those one-on-one appointments, as well as presentations and workshops that may appear in your various classes. And then lastly, of course, we do have various events throughout the year if you want chances to meet up with employers, whether it's your on-campus employers through student employment fairs, through student employment office, or through career engagement. We also have our career fair with employers as well later on throughout the year. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Mishu.